My brother wore this when he died.
Who are you?
The scent of rain on hot asphalt is a memory in itself, a ghost that haunts the city long after the storm has passed. It's the scent of this night, clinging to my skin and my cheap work apron as I wipe. Down the last table at Marino's. Diner, the clock above. The pie case glows a sickly green, its hands inching toward 2 a.m. This is the dead zone. The hollowed-out hour when the city holds its breath, and the only souls left are those with nowhere else to go. Like me. I've been running for 2 years, but my feet have gotten tired, settling for this. The slow, circular motion of a damp rag over formica, the faint smell of grease and bleach, the silence that is just a blank canvas for every mistake I've ever made. You can't outpace your past. You can only distract yourself from its footsteps. And on nights like this, when the diner is empty, and the rain taps a lonely rhythm against the glass, the footsteps get too loud to ignore. My name is Lena, and 2 years ago the man I loved vanished without a trace. No note, no call, no body. Just a silence so profound it became a presence. A ghost that shares my tiny apartment and follows me to work. His name was Leo. He had eyes, the color of a summer sky, and a laugh that could make you forget your own name. He told me he was an import-export consultant, always traveling, always with a new story from some far-flung city. I believed him because I wanted to. Because the alternative, that the perfect, gentle man who brought me coffee in bed and remembered my mother's birthday was a fiction, was unthinkable. Now, all I have left of him is the silver locket I wear under my uniform. It's small, delicate, and engraved with swirling vines. Inside is a tiny, faded photograph of the two of us. Taken at a county fair, our faces pressed together, smiling like we had all the time in the world. I never take it off. It's my secret rebellion against his disappearance. A refusal to let him be completely erased. You're going to polish a hole straight through that table. Kid, Sal's voice, gravelly from 40 years of cigarettes and late nights, cuts through my thoughts. He's leaning against the kitchen pass-through, arms crossed over his stained white apron. He's a big man, built like a retired boxer, with a heart he hides under a layer of perpetual grumpiness. It's clean. It's been clean for 10 minutes. Go home. I force a smile as I toss the rag into the plastic bin, just trying to earn my keep. Sal, you earn your keep by not scaring off the customers with that 1,000-yard stare, he grumbles. But there's no heat in it. He knows my story, or at least the version I've told him. The grieving girlfriend, the one who's a little fragile. He's never pushed for more. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. Go on, get out of here. I'll lock up. I don't need to be told twice. The exhaustion is a physical weight, pulling at my shoulders, my eyelids. I untie my apron, hang it on the rusty hook in the back, and grab my thin jacket. The rain has softened to a fine mist, casting halos around the streetlights and turning the parked cars into dark, hulking shapes. The diner is on the edge of a decent neighborhood, a lonely outpost of light between the bustling city center and the industrial docks. My walk home is 5 blocks of quiet streets and shadowed doorways. It's the part of the night I hate the most. Every flicker of a curtain, every scuff of a shoe on pavement behind me sends a jolt of adrenaline through my system. It's an old habit, a leftover instinct from a life I left behind, a life Leo never knew about. I grew up on the South Side, a place where you learn to read the streetlights like a mood ring and keep your head down. I learned to fight, to run, to sense trouble before it saw me. I thought I'd escaped all that when I met Leo. He was my ticket to an everyday, soft life. Now, with him gone, the old instincts have crept back in, a constant low-grade hum of paranoia. I'm halfway home, passing a narrow alley that smells of damp brick and rotting garbage when I feel it. A shift in the air, a presence. I stop walking, my hand tightening around the keys in my pocket. One key thrust between my knuckles like a makeshift weapon. My heart is a frantic drum against my ribs. The street is silent. Too silent. Even the distant hum of traffic seems to have died. And then I see them. 2 black SUVs, sleek and expensive, glide to a stop at the mouth of the street, blocking it off. Doors open silently, and men in dark, tailored suits emerge. They move with a coordinated, fluid grace that screams of training and purpose. They are not the police. They are something else entirely. My breath catches in my throat. Instinct screams at me to run, to melt into the shadows. But my feet are rooted to the spot. This is it. This is the thing I've been running from. The ghost finally made flesh. They fan out, their eyes scanning the street. and it's clear they are looking for something. For someone, for me. A taller man steps from the lead SUV. Even from this distance, I can feel the authority radiating from him. He's wearing a long, dark coat, his hands buried in the pockets. His face is all sharp angles and shadows, carved from stone and ice. He doesn't speak, but his gaze sweeps the street, methodical, relentless. And then it lands on me. It's like being struck by a physical force. The air leaves my lungs. His eyes are a chilling, pale gray, the color of a winter sky before a storm. They hold no warmth, no curiosity, only a cold, calculating intensity. He starts walking toward me, his footsteps unnervingly quiet on the wet pavement. His men fall into step behind him, a silent, deadly procession. I should run. Every fiber of my being is screaming at me to run. But where would I go? They've blocked the street. They are professionals, and a deeper, more terrifying part of me is tired. I can only stare at him, at the devastating pain etched into the harsh lines of his face, a pain that mirrors the hollow ache I've carried for 2 years. His grip on my wrist is the only thing anchoring me to the earth, a brutal tether to a reality that is unraveling too fast. Leo, I whisper, the name a prayer and a curse on my lips. His name was Leo. His eyes, those chilling pale pools, bore into mine, searching for a lie, for a trick, for anything that might make this moment make sense. The men behind him are statues, their faces impassive, but I can feel their heightened alertness, a coiled tension ready to spring. The one who holds me is the center of the storm, his stillness more violent than any movement. His name was Alessio. He corrects me, his voice a low, gravelly rasp. The name is foreign, Italian, elegant, and hard. It doesn't fit the man I knew, the man who loved bad action movies and burned our toast every single morning. Alessio. It sounds like a stranger. No, I insist, a desperate, stubborn denial. It was Leo Valeri. He was an import consultant. A harsh, bitter sound escapes him, almost a laugh but devoid of any humor. It's the sound of shattering glass. He was my brother, he says, and the words are weighted with a history I can't begin to comprehend. Alessio Marcello, and he was no important consultant, Marcello. The name hits me with the force of a physical blow. Everyone in this city, even on its fringes, knows that name. It's not a name. It's an institution. A shadow empire built on things that don't bear thinking. About power, fear, blood. Leo, Alessio, was a Marcello. The world I thought I knew, the life we built together, was a house of cards, and with one breath, this man has blown it all down. He finally releases my wrist, but his gaze doesn't waver. He gently closes the locket, his thumb stroking the engraved silver as if it were a holy relic. The gesture is so tender, so at odds with everything else about him, that it cracks something open inside my chest. You will come with me, he says. It is not a request. It is a simple, unassailable statement of fact. The spell breaks. The instinct to survive, to flee, surges back to the forefront. No, I'm not going anywhere with you. I take a step back, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. You know my name. You know about the locket. That doesn't mean I have to go with you. His expression hardens. The brief flash of vulnerability sealed away behind a wall of impenetrable ice. You have 2 choices. You come with me willingly, and I will give you the answers you have been seeking for 2 years. Or my men will put you in the car, and you will get those answers anyway. The outcome is the same. The method is your choice. He is giving me the illusion of control, and we both know it. I look past him, at the silent, suited men, at the black SUVs that look like hearses. I think of running. I think of the 5 blocks to my apartment, the deadbolt on my door, the pathetic knife I keep in my cutlery drawer. It would be a futile, pathetic gesture. These are not men you run from. These are men you survive. And the promise of answers. It's a siren's call. I'm too weak, too broken to resist. For 2 years, I have been drowning in questions. Who was Leo? Why did he leave? Did he ever love me? Or was it all a part of some elaborate game? This man, this stranger with my dead lover's eyes, is offering me a life raft. Even if it's taking me directly into the heart of the storm, I swallow the lump of fear in my throat and give a single, sharp nod. Willingly, I manage to say. A flicker of something, respect perhaps, crosses his face. He gestures toward the lead SUV. One of his men opens the rear door. The interior is pristine with dark leather, and the air smells of polish and expensive aftershave. It's a world away from the sticky, vinyl booths of Marino's. Diner. I slide across the smooth seat, my damp jacket clinging to the material. He gets in after me, his large frame taking up so much space that the luxurious interior feels claustrophobic. The door closes with a soft, definitive thud, sealing us in. The driver, separated by a dark partition, pulls away from the curb. The other SUV falls in behind us. We glide through the sleeping city, a funeral procession for a life I no longer recognize. I press myself against the door, putting as much distance between us as possible, my arms wrapped tightly around myself. I stare out the window, watching my old life, the flickering neon of a late-night bar, a couple laughing under an umbrella, the familiar glow of my own apartment building as we pass it. I disappear into the rain-streaked night. I'm leaving Lena, the waitress, the mourner behind. I don't know who I am becoming. He doesn't speak. He watches me, his gaze a physical pressure. I can feel him putting me together, piece by piece, trying to fit the image of the woman in the locket with the reality of the frightened, rain-damp girl in his car. After several minutes, he breaks the silence, his voice low in the quiet hum of the vehicle. My name is Gabriel Marcello. I don't look at him. Lena, I say, though he already knows. Lena Sorrento. The name feels flimsy, inadequate. How did you find me? The locket, he says. It was custom-made, a family piece, our grandmother's. The engraving is unique. One of my men thought he saw it on a waitress at a diner a few weeks ago. It took time to confirm, to watch you, to be sure. He says it so matter-of-factly, as if having a woman stalked for weeks is the most normal thing in the world, and for him it probably is. A cold shiver runs down my spine. I've been watching, followed, my routines, my grief, my loneliness, all observed and reported back to this man. The violation is profound. You've been spying on me. I needed to know who you were, he replies, his tone leaving no room for apology. Before I approached. And what have you decided? I finally turn to look at him, anger giving me a fragile courage. Who am I, Gabriel Marcello? His eyes meet mine, and in their wintry depths, I see a conflict I don't understand. That, he says quietly, is what I am still trying to determine. We drive in silence for another 20 minutes, leaving the neighborhoods. I know and entering a part of the city I've only ever seen in magazines. The buildings grow taller, sleeker, the lights brighter. We pull into the underground garage of a glittering glass tower, descending into a world of concrete and muted light. The garage is nearly empty, reserved for the privileged few who live in the clouds above. The car stops. Gabriel gets out and holds the door for me. The gesture is oddly formal, chivalrous. I take his offered hand, my own feeling small and cold in his. His skin is warm, his grip firm. He doesn't let go immediately, his eyes scanning the garage, a predator ensuring the territory is secure before leading his charge into the open. He leads me to a private elevator, its doors polished to a mirror shine. He presses his thumb to a scanner, and the doors slide open silently. We step inside. The elevator has no buttons. It just begins to rise, swift and smooth. The numbers on the digital display climbing higher and higher. The penthouse, of course. When the doors open, I step out into another world. It's not a home. It's a fortress of glass and steel. The entire far wall is a single, curved pane of glass, offering a breathtaking, dizzying view of the city skyline. The lights twinkling like a carpet of fallen stars. The room is vast, filled with minimalist furniture that looks both incredibly expensive and profoundly uncomfortable. Polished concrete floors, a single abstract painting that is worth more than my entire life. Warm, recessed lighting that somehow fails to make the space feel warm. It is the pinnacle of luxury, and it is utterly, soul-crushingly cold. There is no sign of life. No stray book, no discarded sweater, no family photos. It is a stage set, a beautiful, empty shell. Gabriel shrugs off his coat, tossing it over the back of a sleek charcoal sofa. He moves to a crystal decanter on a sideboard and pours 2 fingers of amber, liquid, into a heavy glass. He doesn't offer me one. He drinks half of it in one swallow, his back to me, his shoulders tense as he looks out at his kingdom. I stand awkwardly in the center of the room, feeling like a piece of dirt tracked onto the pristine floor. The silence stretches, taut and heavy. He is the one who brought me here, but now he seems at a loss. The man of action is gone, replaced by a man grappling with a ghost. Finally, he turns. The glass is cradled in his hand. His eyes find the locket again, which is settled outside my jacket. Tell me, he says, his voice rough. Tell me everything. From the beginning. The command is a quiet detonation in the sterile silence of the penthouse. Could you tell me everything? 2 years of silence, of choked-back tears and unanswered questions. And now this man, this stranger who shares my ghost's blood, demands the story I've barely allowed myself to think about. Where does the beginning even start? Does it start with the loneliness before him? The hollow ache of a life that felt like a waiting room? I wrap my arms around myself, a feeble shield against the memory and his penetrating gaze. The city glitters below, a universe of lives completely unaware that mine is being torn open at the seams. I was working at a coffee shop near the university. I begin, my voice sounding thin and reedy in the vast space. Not a nice one. A grimy place with sticky floors and bitter, overbrewed coffee. It was a stopgap. I was studying, trying to be normal. I don't elaborate on what I was trying to be normal from. The South Side is a story for another time, if ever. He came in on Tuesday afternoon. It was raining, just like tonight.
He shook the water from his hair and he smiled.
It was like the sun coming out. The memory is so vivid it hurts. Leo, Alessio, dripping onto the scuffed linoleum, his smile easy and genuine. Or so I'd thought. Gabriel doesn't move. He watches me, his glass forgotten in his hand. He is a statue, absorbing every word, every flicker of emotion on my face. He ordered a black coffee. He came back the next day, and the day after that. Always polite, always that smile. After a week, he asked my name. After 2, he asked me out. I can feel a traitorous warmth in my cheeks. A ghost of the blush I'd felt then. He was charming. Not in a slick way. In a quiet way. He listened. He remembered things. My favorite flower, the book I was reading, the story about my childhood dog. I look at Gabriel, desperate for him to understand. He was kind. Does that make any sense to you? Was your brother capable of kindness? A shadow crosses Gabriel's face, dark and unreadable. He was capable of many things, he says, his voice flat. Continue. The words feel like pulling shards of glass from an old wound. We dated for 6 months. It was perfect, or I thought it was. He told me he traveled for work, that he was a consultant. He'd be gone for a few days, sometimes a week. He'd always come back with a small gift. A story about a boring meeting in a sterile hotel. I never questioned it. Why would I? He was everything I'd ever wanted. Stable, gentle, normal. The word tastes like ash now. He hated crowds. He preferred quiet dinners at home. He liked walking in the park and watching old movies. He was tidy, almost obsessively so. I used to tease him about it. I remember the tiny apartment we shared for the last 4 months of his life. How he would line up his shoes perfectly in the closet. How the single drawer he kept locked in his bedside table never seemed to bother me. I thought it was financial papers, private things. I respected his privacy. What a fool I was. He gave me the locket on our first anniversary. I whisper, my fingers finding the cool metal again. He said it was his grandmother's. He said she would have wanted me to have it. I look at Gabriel, my vision blurring with unshed tears. Was that a lie too? Gabriel's jaw tightens. No, that part was true. It was our Nana's. She gave it to him. He never took it off. He takes a slow step toward me, his presence filling the room. The night he disappeared. Tell me about that night. This is the heart of it, the black hole that has consumed me for 2 years. I close my eyes and I am back there. It was a Thursday. We had made pasta. He was quiet, but I thought he was just tired from a recent trip. He'd been away for 3 days. He'd held me so tightly before we went to sleep. I thought it was love. Now I know it was fear. He went to bed before me, I say, the words barely audible. I stayed up to read. When I went to bed, he was asleep, or he was pretending to be. I opened my eyes, meeting Gabriel's stormy gaze. When I woke up, he was gone. His side of the bed was cold. His suitcase was gone. His toothbrush was gone from the holder. It was like he had never been there at all. The old, familiar panic claws at my throat. There was no note, nothing. His phone was disconnected. I called his work. The number he'd given me was a fake, a dead end. I went to the police. They filed a report, but they weren't interested. A grown man leaves his girlfriend. It happens every day. They implied he'd found someone else, that he'd just moved on. The humiliation of those days, those weeks, washes over me anew. The pitying looks from friends. The quiet certainty that I had been too naive, too clingy, that I had driven him away. I waited, I say, my voice breaking. For months I waited. I thought maybe he'd had a breakdown. that he'd show up at the door with some wild story. I checked the hospitals, the morgues. Nothing, he was just gone. A single hot tear escapes and traces a path down my cheek. I swipe it away angrily. I thought it was my fault. I thought I'd done something wrong. I replayed every conversation, every moment, looking for a clue, a sign I'd missed. Gabriel is closer now. I can see the fine lines around his eyes, the flecks of darker gray in the pale irises. He is studying me with an almost physical intensity. "You did nothing wrong," he says, and the certainty in his voice is like a balm on a burn I've carried for so long. His disappearance had nothing to do with you. Then what did it have to do with? I demand, the anger finally surfacing hot and sharp. Why did he leave? Why did he lie to me? Who was he really? Gabriel's expression is grim. Alessio was my second in command. My heir, he was being groomed to take over. Everything. He gestures vaguely, a slight movement that encompasses the penthouse, the city, his entire empire. Our world is not a kind one, Lena. It is built on loyalty, on blood, on secrets. Alessio, he was different. He had a softer heart. He saw the cost of our business in a way I sometimes chose not to. He wanted out. The word hangs between us. Out. It was the one thing you never got in their world. Everyone knew that. He came to me 6 months before he disappeared. Gabriel continues, his voice low, as if the walls themselves might be listening. He told me he wanted to leave. He said he had met someone. He said he wanted a quiet life. His eyes lock with mine. He said he wanted a life with you. The air leaves my lungs. He had asked. He had tried for me. I refused, Gabriel says, and there is a world of regret in those 2 words. It wasn't that simple. You don't just resign. There are alliances, debts, and appearances. His departure would have been seen as a weakness. It would have sparked a war. I told him it was impossible. I told him to forget you. I feel dizzy. The room sways. All this time I thought I wasn't enough. And the truth was, I was too much. I was the reason he wanted to leave. I was the danger. We fought, Gabriel says, his gaze drifting back to the city lights. It was the worst fight we'd ever had. He accused me of being a prisoner of my own power. I accused him of being a fool, of risking everything our family had built for a fantasy. He doesn't look at me when he says the last word, but it lands like a blow. A fantasy. Was that all I was? He stayed for a few more months, Gabriel continues. But he was different, distant. He was making plans. I knew it. I thought I had more time. I could reason with him, protect him. He turns his head, and the raw, unvarnished grief in his eyes is terrifying. Then one night he was gone just as you described. No note, no trace. But in our world, that only means one thing. I know what he's going to say before he says it. The pieces are all falling into a horrifying final picture. He was killed, Lena, Gabriel says, his voice dropping to a deathly whisper. He was executed for trying to leave. For choosing you. The world goes silent. The hum of the air conditioner, the distant sirens, the beating of my own heart. It all fades into a high-pitched whine. The floor feels unsteady beneath my feet. He didn't leave me. He was taken from me, murdered for loving me. My legs give way. I don't collapse. I fold, sinking onto the cold, hard floor, my face in my hands. The sobs come then, racking, painful convulsions that tear through me. They are not the quiet tears of lonely grief I've known for 2 years. These are screams of rage, of loss, of a terrible, soul-crushing guilt. He died because of me. He died for me. I don't hear Gabriel move, but I feel him. He kneels in front of me. He doesn't touch me. He doesn't offer empty comfort. He bears witness to the shattering of my world. And when I finally look up, my face ravaged and wet. His own eyes are bright with unshed tears. I have spent the last 2 years searching for his body, he says, his voice thick. And for the man who gave the order. I have torn this city apart. I have started wars over it, and the only link I ever found was you, the locket, the one thing he would never have parted with willingly. He reaches out, his fingers hovering near the silver chain. He loved you, Lena. I see that now. And that love got him killed. And for that, I am so sorry. His apology is the most devastating thing I have ever heard. It isn't just an apology for my pain. It is an apology for his role in it, for his refusal, for his failure to protect his brother. In this moment, he is not a mafia kingpin. He is just a man, broken by the loss of the only person in the world he probably ever truly loved. We kneel there on the cold, hard floor of his sterile palace, Two strangers bound together by a ghost, by a locket, and by a truth more terrible than any lie. Grounding counterpoint to the emotional chaos. Gabriel hasn't moved. He remains crouched before me, a silent sentinel in a world he commands but cannot control. The raw pain I saw in his eyes is gone, sealed away behind that familiar, impenetrable mask, but I know it's there now. I've seen the cracks in his foundation. Who? I ask, my voice raspy from crying. The single word hangs in the air, heavy with implication. Who killed him? Gabriel's expression hardens, the brief vulnerability vanishing completely. He rises to his feet in one fluid, powerful motion, and I am reminded of the immense physical power he possesses. He offers me a hand. After a moment's hesitation, I take it. His grip is firm, pulling me up effortlessly. My legs are unsteady, but I lock my knees, refusing to show any more weakness. That is the question, he says, turning and walking toward the glass wall. He stares out at his domain, his hands clasped behind his back. In my world, an execution of that nature, it's a message, it's a statement. It means the order came from someone with significant authority, someone who felt threatened by Alessio's desire to leave, or who saw an opportunity in his absence. He falls silent for a long moment. I have my suspicions, but suspicion is not proof, and in my position, acting on suspicion alone can lead to a civil war that would burn this city to the ground. So you've done nothing? The accusation is out before I can stop it, fueled by a fresh wave of anger. He turns his head, a sharp predatory movement. His eyes narrow. I have done everything. He corrects me, his voice dangerously soft. I have dismantled 2 rival families on the suspicion they were involved. I have interrogated. I have bribed. I have threatened. I have a list of names. But the one at the top, the one I believe is truly responsible, is untouchable without irrefutable evidence. He is protected by his position, by his alliances, by the very structure of our organization. Who is he? I press, taking a step closer. The fear I felt in the street is gone, replaced by a burning, righteous fury. Leo, Alessio, deserved more than to become a pawn in a power struggle. Gabriel studies me, as if weighing my capacity for the truth. His name is Silas, he says finally. Silas Abundando. He was my father's consigliere. Now he is mine. He is the architect of our financial empire. He knows every secret, every weakness. He is the most trusted man in our organization, and the most dangerous. A consigliere, an advisor, the brain to the brawn. The thought is chilling. This wasn't a street-level thug. It was a calculated political assassination from within the inner circle. Why would he do it? Power, Gabriel states, as if it's the most straightforward equation in the world. With Alessio gone, the line of succession is unclear. I have no other siblings, no heir. It creates a vacuum. Silas has a nephew, a ruthless, ambitious young man, whom he has been positioning for years. With me isolated, grieving, and without a clear successor, Silas's influence grows. He becomes the power behind the throne. Or, Gabriel's voice drops. He removes the throne entirely and takes it for himself. The complexity of it, the cold, chess-like strategy makes my head spin. This was never about Leo loving me. It was about Gabriel's power, his legacy. Leo was just a piece on the board, sacrificed to weaken the king. And the locket? I ask, my fingers finding it again. If he was killed, why did I have it? That is the one piece that doesn't fit, Gabriel admits, frustration edging his tone. It's the only thing that made me question whether he was truly dead. It was his most prized possession. The men who do this kind of work, they are thorough. They would have taken it as proof of death, or left it with the body. The fact that you had it, it means he got it to you before they took him. Or, he trails off, a new unsettling thought seeming to form. Or someone else wanted you to have it. The idea is a fresh chill down my spine. What do you mean? I mean, he says, turning to face me fully, that the locket was a message too. Just a different kind. A message to me. A way of leading me to you. He takes a step toward me, his gaze intense. Silas is cunning. He would have known I would never stop looking. By leaving you alive, with the locket, he created a loose thread, a thread he could pull on when the time was right. You are a weapon, Lena. One he has been keeping in reserve. And by bringing you here tonight, I may have just played directly into his hands. The realization dawns on me, cold and terrifying. I am not just a mourner. I am a pawn. I have been from the very beginning. My 2 years of grief, my lonely life at the diner, it was all part of someone else's game. And now I am in the lion's den, with a man who may have just signed my death warrant by taking me off the board. He knows I'm here, I whisper, a statement of fact. If he is the one who had you watched, then yes, Gabriel replies, his voice grim. He knows. And he will make a move. It's only a matter of time. Panic, sharp and acidic, rises in my throat. I need to leave. You have to let me go. And go where? He asks, not unkindly, but with a brutal logic. Back to your apartment? He will have men there within the hour. You have no family, no one you can trust. You would be dead before sunrise. He shakes his head. No, you are here now. And that changes the game. You are no longer a hidden weapon. You are a piece in play. And you are under my protection. Your protection? A hysterical laugh bubbles in my chest. You just said your own most trusted advisor is probably the one who murdered your brother. How can you protect me from him? Because now I know the threat, he says, his voice dropping to a low, determined rumble. And because you are the only living person who knew my brother in his other life, you are the last piece of him I have left. He looks at the locket, then back at my face, and his expression is resolute. Silas may have led me to you, but he made a mistake. He underestimated what you meant. You are not a liability, Lena. You are a witness, and you are the key to proving what he did. He walks to a panel on the wall and presses a sequence of buttons. A soft chime echoes through the penthouse. You will stay here. This floor is a fortress. It has its own security system, independent from the building. My personal guards are loyal to me, not to the organization. You will be safe. Safe? I echo the word, feeling foreign. I'm a prisoner. You are a guest, he corrects, though his tone offers no room for negotiation. For now, the distinction is irrelevant. Your survival depends on you. Staying within these walls, he gestures down a hallway. The second door on the right is a guest suite. You will find everything you need. Get some rest. Tomorrow we begin. Begin what? His gray eyes meet mine, and in their depths, I see the storm gathering. We begin digging into Silas's world. We begin looking for the proof I need. And you, he says, his gaze unwavering, are going to help me. I'm just going to tell you every single detail you can remember about the months leading up to Alessio's disappearance. Every conversation, every stranger who looked at you twice, every time he seemed nervous. Everything. We are going to find the truth, Lena, together. He turns and walks away, leaving me standing alone in the vast, cold, beautiful room. The city stretches out before me, a map of power and secrets. I am at the very center of it. A waitress from a diner, caught in a war between kings. I look down at the locket in my hand, the silver heart that started it all. It is no longer just a piece of jewelry. It is a key, a weapon, and a target painted directly on my chest. Gabriel Marcello believes I am the key to his vengeance. And I realize with a cold, apparent certainty that he is right because I want that vengeance too. The silence after he leaves is profound. It's not the quiet of the diner after closing, which was always filled with the lingering ghosts of conversation and clattering plates. This is the silence of a vacuum, of a space designed to keep the world out. I stand there for a long time, just breathing, trying to make my heart beat at a normal rhythm. The polished concrete floor is cold through my thin shoes. I walk to the immense window, pressing my palms against the cool, unyielding glass. The city is laid out below, a sprawling circuit board of light and shadow. From up here it looks peaceful, orderly. It's a lie. I know the truth of those streets now. The brutal currents that run beneath the surface. Currents that pulled Leo under and are now tugging at my ankles. A guest, a prisoner. The distinction is irrelevant, he'd said. He was right. My eyes scan the skyline, looking for a familiar landmark, for the faint glow that might be my neighborhood. It's all just a meaningless tapestry of light from this height. I am utterly, completely disconnected from the life I had just a few hours ago. Lena Sorrento, the waitress, is gone. Who is left in her place? I don't know yet. Driven by a need to move, to do something. I walk down the hallway he'd indicated. It's as stark and minimalist as the living room. The second door on the right is, as promised, a guest suite. I push it open and step inside. It's not a room. It's a showroom from a luxury magazine. A vast bed with a charcoal gray duvet dominates the space. There's a sleek empty desk, a single abstract sculpture on a pedestal, and another floor-to-ceiling window offering a different, equally dizzying view. A door is ajar, revealing a bathroom of white marble and chrome. Everything is pristine, impersonal, and expensive. There are no personal touches, no art on the walls that suggests a taste, no books on the shelf that hint at a personality. It is a cage, but it is the most beautiful cage I have ever seen. I walk into the bathroom. My reflection in the mirror stops me short. I look wild. My hair is a mess from the rain and my frantic hands. My eyes are red-rimmed and puffy from crying. My dinner uniform is wrinkled and damp. I look like a drowned cat that has been dragged into a palace. The girl in the reflection is a stranger, her face pale and her eyes holding a new, frightening depth. I splash cold water on my face, the shock of it a small, necessary jolt. I dry my hands on a towel so soft and thick it feels like stealing. Back in the bedroom, I notice a closet. I open it out of a morbid curiosity. It's not empty. Inside are a few simple, elegant items. A pair of black trousers, a couple of silk blouses, and a cashmere sweater, all in my size. There are also toiletries in the bathroom, unopened and high-end. The implication is clear. He didn't just bring me here on a whim. He planned for me to stay. The surveillance, the confirmation of the locket. He had this room prepared. The thought is unsettling. He has been orchestrating this for days, maybe weeks, while I was obliviously wiping tables and counting tips. I peel off my damp, greasy uniform, leaving it in a small heap on the immaculate floor. It feels like shedding a skin. I pull on the cashmere sweater and the trousers. They fit perfectly. The fabric is whisper-soft against my skin, a sensation so alien it's almost uncomfortable. I feel like I'm wearing a costume. I sit on the edge of the bed, the mattress firm and unyielding. Rest. He told me to rest. Could you tell me how I should do that? My mind is a roaring engine, replaying every word Gabriel said. Alessio Marcello. Silas Abondando. Execution. A message. I think of Leo's face, his easy smile. I try to superimpose the name Alessio onto him, to see the mafia prince in the man who used to sing off-key in the shower. The pieces don't fit. Or maybe they do, and I was just blind to them. The locked drawer in his bedside table. The way he would sometimes fall silent, his eyes growing distant, as if remembering something terrible. The times he'd check the peephole before opening our apartment door. I had chalked it up to quirks, to the paranoia of a man who traveled for business. Now I see them for what they were. The habits of a man living a double life. A man constantly looking over his shoulder. A soft knock at the door makes me jump. My heart leaps into my throat. Who is it? It's Gabriel. His voice is muffled through the thick wood. I stand up, smoothing down the unfamiliar sweater. Come in. He opens the door but doesn't fully enter, leaning against the frame. He's changed out of his suit into dark trousers and a simple black sweater. It makes him look younger, less like a corporate titan and more like what he is, a dangerous man in his element. He holds a small tray with a bowl of steaming soup, a few slices of bread and a glass of water. You should eat, he says, his tone neutral. He places the tray on the desk. The gesture is so typical, so domestic, that it feels utterly bizarre in this context. The mafia boss brought me soup. I'm not hungry. You need to keep your strength up, he replies, not pushing, just stating a fact. His eyes sweep over me, taking in the clothes from the closet. They fit. You were that sure I'd come willingly? I ask, a bitter edge to my voice. I was sure you would come, he says, avoiding the word willingly. I prepare for all eventualities. His gaze is drawn again to the locket, which rests against the soft cashmere. It looks right on you, he murmurs, almost to himself. He had good taste. The comment is so unexpected that it disarms me. It's not a compliment to me. It's a tribute to his brother, a moment of genuine, unguarded acknowledgement of the man Leo was to me. It's the first thing he said that hasn't felt like a strategic move in a war. Thank you, I say quietly, my hand rising to touch the locket. For the food. And the clothes? He gives a short, sharp nod. Get some sleep. Tomorrow will be a long day. He turns to leave. Gabriel, I call out, stopping him. He glances back. The man you suspect. Silas, what does he look like? A shadow passes over his face. Why? Because you want me to remember details, I say, crossing my arms over my chest. So I need to know if I've ever seen him. Maybe Leo pointed him out on the street. Maybe he came into the coffee shop. I don't know. I need a face to put to the name. He considers this for a moment, then pulls out his phone. He taps the screen a few times and then holds it out to me. On it is a photograph. It's not a candid shot. It looks like it was taken at a formal event. The man in the picture is in his late 60s, with a full head of impeccably styled silver hair and a neatly trimmed beard. He's wearing a beautifully tailored suit and has a polite, almost grandfatherly smile. He looks kind. He looks like someone's favorite uncle, A man who might give you wise advice or tell you stories about the old country. There is nothing in his appearance that suggests a cold-blooded murderer. That more than anything terrifies me. "This is Silas," Gabriel says, watching my reaction. I stare at the photo, committing every detail to memory. The gentle crinkles around his eyes, the confident set of his shoulders, the benign smile. I search my memory, flipping through 2 years of faces, of customers, of passers-by. I see nothing. He is a stranger. "I've never seen him before," I say, handing the phone back. "That's probably for the best," Gabriel replies, slipping the phone back into his pocket. "If you had, you might not be here right now." With that, he leaves, closing the door softly behind him. I am alone again. The image of Silas's face is burned into my mind. The friendly eyes, the gentle smile, a monster wearing a grandfather's face. I look at the tray of food. My stomach clenches with a hunger I hadn't acknowledged. I pick up the spoon and taste the soup. It's simple, a rich chicken broth with herbs. It's the most delicious thing I've ever tasted. I eat it all, and the bread too, surprised by my own appetite. In the midst of chaos, the body still demands its basic needs. When I'm done, I place the tray outside the door. I use the bathroom and brush my teeth with the unopened toothbrush provided. The normalcy of the routine is surreal. I climb into the enormous bed. The sheets are crisp and cool. I lie there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the absolute silence. I think of Leo, Alessio. I try to picture him here, in this world of glass and steel. I can't. He belonged in our small apartment with the mismatched furniture and the smell of coffee. He belonged with me, but that was the fiction. This, the cold luxury and the lurking threat, is the reality he was born into. And now it's my reality too. Gabriel believes I am the key, and as I lie in the dark, the locket a cool weight against my skin, I know that he is right. I have to be. It's the only way any of this will ever make sense. It's the only way I can finally, honestly, say goodbye to the man I loved. Not by mourning him, but by avenging him. The darkness behind my eyelids offers no escape, only a cinema of ghosts. Leo's face went from smiling to fearful. Silas's deceptively kind eyes. Gabriel's stark, pained expression. They swirled together in a chaotic dance, their voices overlapping in a tangled chorus of memory and threat. Sleep is a futile concept. Every creak of the building, every faint hum from the climate control system, is a potential footstep, a door opening, the beginning of the end. Silas knows I'm here. The thought is a cold stone in my gut. How long until he acts? What form will it take? A gas leak? A break-in by unknown assailants? In this world of shadows, death would be just as deniable as Leo's. I must have drifted off, because the shift in light wakes me. A pale gray dawn is bleeding into the sky, washing the vibrant city lights into muted pastels. The rain has stopped, leaving a clean, cold clarity in the air. I feel gritty-eyed and heavy-limbed, the kind of exhaustion that comes from a night spent fighting imaginary demons. I push back the duvet and pad to the window. The world below is beginning to stir. Tiny cars creep along veins of asphalt. From this height, it all looks so orderly, so manageable. It's a beautiful, cruel illusion. A soft knock, different from last night's, sounds at the door. It's firmer, more official. "Miss Sorrento? Mr. Martello requests your presence in the study when you're ready." The voice is male, polite, and utterly impersonal. "I'll be out in a minute," I call back, my voice still rough with sleep and unshed tears. I retreat to the bathroom and take a quick, bracingly hot shower in the marble stall. The water pressure is incredible, pounding the tension from my shoulders. I dress again in the clothes from the closet, the soft fabric now feeling less like a costume and more like a uniform for a war I never enlisted in. I brush my hair and tie it back, studying my reflection. The girl from the diner is still there, but her eyes are different. They're harder, older, she's learning. When I open the door, a man is waiting in the hallway. He's not one of the suited men from last night. He's dressed in dark, tactical-style clothing, though it's impeccably clean and tailored. He has a military bearing, a shaved head and eyes that scan me, the hallway, the very air, with a constant analytical calm. He doesn't smile. "Miss Sorrento, I'm Kale, this way, please." He turns and leads me down the hall without another word. I have no choice but to follow. He leads me to a part of the penthouse I hadn't seen, to a door that looks like any other. He presses his thumb to a scanner and it clicks open. The room inside is a stark contrast to the minimalist opulence of the rest of the home. This is a command center. One entire wall is a bank of monitors. some showing live security feeds from dozens of angles, others displaying data streams I can't decipher. There are several computer workstations. A large, tactical table in the center of the room holds a few tablets and a series of maps. Gabriel is standing at this table, dressed in a dark button-down shirt, the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He looks like he hasn't slept at all. He glances up as I enter. "Lena, good." He gestures for me to come closer. Kale takes up a position by the door, a silent, watchful statue. "This is where we work," Gabriel says, his voice all business. "The grieving brother from last night is gone, replaced by the commander. The rest of this floor is a shell. This is the heart." He taps the table, and one of the maps illuminates. It's a detailed city layout, dotted with colored pins and annotations. Silas operates from a corporate headquarters downtown, but his real power base is here. He points to a cluster of pins near the waterfront. A social club, a restaurant he owns, several warehouses. These are the places we need to focus on. I look at the map, overwhelmed. What do you expect me to do? I'm a waitress, not a spy. You are the only one who knew my brother outside of this life, he says, his gaze intense. You have a perspective none of my men have. You saw things without the filter of our world. That is your value. He picks up a tablet and hands it to me. On it is a digital copy of Silas's photograph. I want you to look at this. I want you to close your eyes and go back. Not to the night he disappeared. Go back to the weeks before. The mundane moments. The trips to the grocery store. The walks in the park. Did you ever feel like you were being watched? Did Leo ever suddenly change plans? Become evasive? Did he receive any calls that seemed to upset him? Anything. No detail is too small. I take the tablet. Its smooth, cool surface feeling like a lead weight. I close my eyes as instructed, trying to push past the fog of grief and focus on the mundane. I think of our last few weeks together. They had been happy for the most part. But there were cracks, now that I look for them with this new, terrible knowledge. There was a weekend, I say slowly, my eyes still closed, visualizing it. We were supposed to go to the coast, just for a night. He'd booked a little inn. He was so excited. Then the night before, he got a phone call. He took it into the other room. When he came back, he was different, distant. He said the trip was off, a work emergency. He was upset but not angry. It was more like resignation, like he'd been expecting it. Gabriel is watching me intently. Did he say who called? No, but... I frown, digging deeper. When he hung up the phone, I think I heard him say a name. Just one word under his breath. I thought it was a curse, but now... I think it was a name. What was it? Gabriel's voice is dangerously quiet. I concentrate. The memory elusive. A fish darting in murky water. It sounded like Vico. Does that mean anything? Gabriel's face goes utterly still. He shares a look with Kale, who gives a nearly imperceptible nod. Vico, Gabriel repeats. Matteo Vico Moretti. He was one of Silas's enforcers. A specialist in persuasive negotiations. He looks back at me, a new respect in his eyes. That work emergency was likely Vico delivering a message from Silas, a reminder of where Alessio's loyalties were supposed to lie. Go on. Encouraged, I sift through more memories. A few days after that, we were at a movie. He kept looking over his shoulder. I asked him what was wrong, and he laughed it off, saying he thought he saw someone from his gym, but he was tense for the rest of the night. I opened my eyes, and there was a car, a dark sedan. I saw it a few times parked near our apartment building. I didn't think anything of it. People park on the street all the time. Make and model? Kyle speaks for the first time, his voice a low rumble. I try to picture it. I'm not good with cars. It was dark. Black or navy, a sedan. It had a small antenna on the back. Unlike a regular car radio antenna, thicker. A surveillance vehicle, Kyle states, looking at Gabriel. Consistent. Gabriel nods, a grim satisfaction on his face. They were watching him. They were tightening the noose. And he knew it. He leans on the table, his knuckles white. He was trying to protect you by not telling you, but his every move was being tracked. He straightens up. This is good, Lena. This gives us a timeline. It confirms the pressure was escalating, directly from Silas's faction. He gestures to the map. Vico is a thread. We pull on that thread. We might find something that leads directly back to Silas. And how do you pull on that thread? I ask, though I'm afraid I already know the answer. Gabriel's smile is thin and cold. We find Vico, and we ask him very, very politely what his instructions were regarding my brother. The casual way he says it, The unspoken threat of violence in his words sends a fresh chill through me. This is the reality. This isn't about gathering evidence for a court of law. This is about gathering intelligence for a trial by combat. And I am now an intelligence asset. What do you need from me now? I ask, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. For now you stay here, Gabriel says. Kyle will remain with you. I have business to attend to downstairs. A meeting designed to keep up appearances, to make Silas think I am distracted by other matters. He heads for the door, pausing to look back at me. Keep thinking. Keep remembering. Every detail is a weapon. He leaves and the door seals shut behind him. I am alone in the high-tech heart of his fortress with the silent, intimidating presence of Kale. I look down at the tablet in my hand, at the smiling, grandfatherly face of the man who may have ordered the love of my life to be murdered. The grief is still there, a vast, dark ocean inside me, but now something else is rising to the surface. Something hard and sharp and determined. It's not just grief anymore, it's a thirst for answers. And for the first time, I feel a flicker of something that feels dangerously like hope. Not for a happy ending, but for a true one. And for vengeance. The command center hummed with a low electronic vitality, a stark contrast to the tomb-like silence of the rest of the penthouse. Kale had retreated to a corner, his attention fixed on the bank of monitors, his presence a constant, low-grade reminder of the danger that necessitated this fortress. I was left with the tablet and the ghost of my own memories. The initial rush of providing helpful information had faded, replaced by the grim reality of the task. I was mining my past for clues to my lover's murder, and every happy memory now had to be re-examined for the rot that lay beneath. I paced the length of the room, the soft soles of the provided shoes making no sound on the polished floor. Vico. The name echoed in my head, a key turning in a lock I never knew existed. I tried to picture his face, to conjure him from the periphery of my old life. Had he been the man in the produce aisle who bumped into our cart? The one who held the elevator door? A face in the crowd at the movie theater? He was a phantom, a malevolent shadow that had been dogging our steps, and I had been blissfully, stupidly unaware. Frustrated, I put the tablet down and walked to the large tactical table. The illuminated map of the city was a web of power and fear. My eyes traced the route from our old apartment to the diner, the mundane geography of my life now superimposed on this battlefield. I saw the cluster of pins Gabriel had indicated near the waterfront, Silas's territory. It felt a world away, and yet it had reached out and strangled my happiness from across the city. The man Vico, I said, turning to Kale. He didn't look away from his screens, but I knew he was listening. What happens when you find him? Kale's response was delayed, as if he were deciding how much to share. We will ask him questions, he said, his voice a monotone. His level of cooperation will determine the nature of those questions. The clinical, detached way he said it was more frightening than any graphic threat. It spoke of a routine, a professional process for extracting truth through pain. This was their world. This was the world Leo had been born into, and had tried to escape. My stomach turned, but I couldn't find any sympathy for this Vico. If he had a hand in Leo's death, he deserved whatever was coming to him. The thought shocked me with its ferocity. The girl from the diner would have been horrified. The woman in the command center felt it was simple justice. And if he confirms it was Silas? I pressed. Then we have a confirmation, Kel replied, still not looking at me. It is a piece of the puzzle, but a man like Vico is a tool. He takes orders. He does not make policy. His word alone is not enough to move against a man of Silas's standing. We would need something more. A document, a recording, a financial trail, something undeniable, so it wasn't enough to know. You had to be able to prove it in the court of their underworld, where the rules of evidence were just as rigid, and the penalty for perjury was always death. The complexity was maddening. The door hissed open, and Gabriel strode back in. The air in the room shifted, charged with his energy. He had a phone in his hand, his knuckles white around it. The controlled calm he'd maintained was gone, replaced by a simmering, volatile intensity. We have a problem, he said, his voice cutting through the hum of the computers. He tossed the phone onto the table. It skidded to a stop in front of me. On the screen was a grainy, black and white photograph. It was taken from across the street, through a rain-spattered window. It was me, in my diner uniform, wiping down a table. The timestamp was from 3 days ago. Silas, I breathed, the word tasting like poison. Worse, Gabriel bit out. This wasn't in the surveillance file my team compiled. This was sent to me 10 minutes ago from an encrypted, untraceable account. The meaning dawned on me slowly, then all at once. This wasn't just proof that I'd been watched. This was a message, delivered directly to Gabriel. I know you have her. I have known about her all along. He's taunting you, I said, a cold knot tightening in my stomach. He's declaring war, Gabriel corrected, his eyes blazing. He's telling me he has infiltrated my operations, that he has sources I haven't rooted out. He's demonstrating that my fortress has cracks. He began to pace, a caged tiger. The meeting I just left was a farce. He was there, smiling that benevolent old man's smile, asking after my health, expressing concern about my distractions. He was looking right at me, knowing he had just sent me this. He slammed his fist on the table, making the tablets jump. The sudden violence in the sound made me flinch. He's in my head. I had never seen him like this. The impeccable control was shattered. This was raw, personal, and dangerously unstable. Cale had turned from his monitors now, watching his boss with a cautious, analytical eye. What do we do? I asked, my voice small. Gabriel stopped pacing and fixed his furious gaze on me. We changed the game. He thinks this is a checkmate. He thinks by revealing his knowledge, he has paralyzed me. But he made one mistake. He walked over to me. Standing so close I could see the flecks of silver in his stormy eyes. He showed us that you are the key. He's not just trying to kill you, Lena. He's afraid of you. He's afraid of what you might know. I don't know anything. I protested, the pressure feeling immense. You know more than you think, he insisted, his voice low and intense. He didn't have you killed 2 years ago. He let you live with that locket for a reason. He kept you in reserve. Why? What does he think you have? What did Alessio give you? Nothing. I told you he left nothing. My mind was racing, tumbling through memories, through the contents of our apartment, the locked drawer. The thought surfaced again, persistent and nagging. I had never opened it. After he disappeared, it felt like a violation. Then, when I was evicted, the landlord took possession of everything. The contents were probably in a landfill by now. The drawer, I whispered. Gabriel went still. What drawer? In our apartment. In his bedside table. It was always locked. I never knew what was inside. I never opened it. After he was gone, the landlord cleared the place out. The admission felt like a failure, the one tangible clue, and I had let it slip through my fingers. But Gabriel's eyes were alight with a new, fierce hope. What was the address? I told him. The name of the street, the number, the landlord's name, Mr. Davos. Gabriel was already turning to Cale. Davos, find him. Find out what he did with the contents of that apartment. If it went to storage, I want the unit bought, and everything inside brought to me. If it was discarded, I want to know which dumpster, which landfill. I want every shred of it found. Cale was already moving, his fingers flying across a keyboard. On it. Gabriel looked back at me, the fury in his eyes now mixed with something else. A desperate, determined gratitude. You see, a detail. A locked drawer. That is what he is afraid of. That is what we need. The sudden reversal, the injection of a tangible goal, was electrifying. We were no longer just sifting through memories. We were hunting for a physical object, a piece of Leo he had tried to hide. Do you really think... I couldn't finish the question. I think my brother was a careful man, Gabriel said, his voice softening marginally. If he were planning to run, if he knew he was in danger, he would have left a trail. He would have hidden something, for me, or for you. He reached out, his hand hesitating for a moment before he gently touched the locket, resting against my sweater. He made sure I found you. Maybe he made sure we could find this, too. The touch was brief, but it sent a jolt through me. It wasn't a romantic gesture. It was a connection. A sealing of our partnership in this grim quest. We were bound together not just by grief, but by a shared purpose, the Avenger and the Witness. An hour later, Cale had a lead. Mr. Davos, a man of habit, had not discarded the apartment's contents. He had sold them to a second-hand furniture dealer in a shabby part of the industrial district, a place that specialized in bulk buys from evictions. The dealer, a man named Finn, was known for being stubborn, greedy, and notoriously slow to sort through his acquisitions. There was a chance, a slim chance, that the contents of our old apartment, including that locked bedside table, were still sitting in his warehouse. Gabriel didn't hesitate. We're going, he announced, grabbing a black jacket from a hook by the door. "We?" I asked, startled. "You can identify the furniture," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "And I am not leaving you here. Not after that photograph." He tossed me a dark hooded sweatshirt. "Put this on. Keep the hood up." As I pulled the coarse fabric over my head, the reality of the situation hit me. I was leaving the fortress. I was going back out into the city, into the world where Silas's men were watching. I was walking directly into the lion's den, with the lion himself as my escort. The fear was a live wire in my veins. But beneath the fear, there was a thrilling, terrifying sense of agency. I was no longer a passive prisoner, a piece to be moved. I was going on the hunt. The world outside the penthouse was a shock to the system. The air in the private elevator was cool, carrying the faint, sterile scent of the building's ventilation. But it felt different, charged with the electricity of the outside. When the doors opened into the underground garage, the atmosphere was thick with the smell of concrete, car exhaust, and dampness. It was the smell of reality, a reality I had been forcibly removed from just hours before. 2 black SUVs were idling, their engines a low, impatient rumble. Cale held the door of the second one open, his eyes constantly scanning the shadows of the garage. Gabriel guided me into the back seat with a firm hand on my elbow. Before sliding in beside me, Cale took the passenger seat up front. The door thudded shut, a sound of finality. The driver, another of Gabriel's impassive, professional guards, pulled out of the garage, and we merged into the late morning traffic. The city looked the same sun struggling through the haze, the same people rushing along the sidewalks, the same buses belching smoke. But I saw it all through a new lens now. Every pedestrian was a potential threat. Every slowing car was a possible ambush. The hood of the sweatshirt felt heavy on my head, the fabric narrowing my vision to a tunnel. I felt exposed, a rabbit that had bolted from its warren. Gabriel was silent beside me, his body tense, his own gaze constantly moving, assessing, calculating. He was a different man out here. In the penthouse, he had been a commander in his citadel. Here, he was a predator back in his natural habitat. Every sense heightened, every muscle coiled. The energy radiating from him was intense, a focused violence waiting for a target. "How long?" he asked Kyle, his voice a low growl. 20 minutes. "Traffic is light," Cale responded, not taking his eyes off the surroundings. "The team is already in position, sweeping the perimeter." We drove away from the glittering center, the buildings growing shorter, dirtier. The sleek glass facades gave way to soot-stained brick and rusting fire escapes. Graffiti splashed across rolled-down security gates. This was a part of the city I knew well, the edges, the places where people did their business away from prying eyes. It was where I had grown up. The familiarity should have been comforting. It wasn't. It just felt like a different kind of trap. The SUV finally turned down a narrow side street lined with warehouses, their windows boarded up or grimy with decades of filth. We stopped in front of a large, corrugated metal building with a faded sign that read, "Finn's Furniture and More." The place looked derelict, but the heavy new lock on the chain-link gate suggested otherwise. Cale and the driver were out first, their hands hovering near their waists. Gabriel turned to me. "Stay close to me. Do exactly as I say. Do not speak to anyone." His eyes were hard, the gray like chips of flint. I just nodded, my throat too tight for words. We got out. The air here was thick with the smell of diesel fuel and rotting wood. Cale went to the gate and rapped sharply on a metal door set into the wall beside it. After a moment, it creaked open a few inches, and a pair of suspicious bloodshot eyes peered out. "We're closed," a wheezy voice said. Cale didn't bother with pleasantries. He shoved a thick wad of cash through the crack. "We're not here to buy, Finn. We're here to look." The door opened wider, revealing a stooped, wiry man with a greasy cap pulled low over his forehead. He snatched the cash, his eyes darting from Kyle to Gabriel to me, his greed warring with his fear. "Look at what?" "The contents of an eviction," Gabriel said, his voice cutting through the man's resistance like a knife. "Apartment 4B on Elm. You bought it from Davos 3 months ago." Finn's eyes widened slightly. He remembered. "Maybe I did. Stuff's all mixed in. Ain't sorted yet. Gonna take you all day. We'll take our chances," Gabriel said, stepping forward. The sheer force of his presence made Finn stumble back, allowing us entry into the cavernous, dimly lit warehouse. The smell inside was overwhelming, a potent mix of dust, mildew, and the ghostly scent of 1,000 forgotten lives. The space was a labyrinth, A canyon of stacked furniture, mattresses leaning against each other like dominoes, piles of cardboard boxes spilling their contents onto the concrete floor. It was a graveyard of domesticity. My heart sank. Finding one small bedside table in this chaos seemed impossible. "This way," Finn grumbled, leading us deeper into the maze. "Stuff from that building is mostly back here." Like I said, ain't sorted. He led us to a particularly chaotic corner. It was a jumble of IKEA furniture, scratched coffee tables and lamps with torn shades. It was a punch to the gut. This was my life with Leo. Our cheap, happy life. Reduced to a pile of junk in a filthy warehouse. I saw the ugly floral armchair we found on the curb. The wobbly bookcase where he kept his architecture books. All lies. It was all here, covered in a fine layer of dust and despair. "The bedroom set," I said, my voice trembling. A simple light wood platform bed. 2 matching nightstands. We waded into the pile. Gabriel and Kale moved with brutal efficiency, shoving larger items aside, their eyes scanning. I focused, trying to remember every scratch, every water ring. And then I saw it, tucked behind a stained mattress, its drawer facing the wall. The familiar grain of the light wood. "There," I pointed, my breath catching. Kyle and Gabriel hauled the mattress away. Gabriel grabbed the nightstand and pulled it out. It was ours. I recognized the chip on the corner from when we'd moved it, the simple brass handle, and the small keyhole on the front of the drawer, still locked. A wave of emotion, triumph, sorrow, terror washed over me. Leo's secret, the one he kept from me. It was here. "Stand back," Gabriel said. He didn't look for a key. He took a small, wicked-looking tactical tool from his pocket, inserted the tip into the keyhole, and with a sharp, brutal twist, the cheap lock snapped with a sound like a gunshot in the quiet warehouse. He pulled the drawer open. Inside, it wasn't filled with guns or stacks of cash as some part of me had feared. It was ordinary. A few pens, a spare charging cable, a half-empty pack of gum, and a small black hardcover notebook. My hope deflated. It was nothing, just a notebook. But Gabriel's reaction was different. He went utterly still. He reached in and picked up the notebook as if it were made of glass. He opened it. The pages were filled with Leo's, Alessio's familiar, elegant handwriting. But it wasn't sketches or love notes. It was columns of numbers, initials, dates, brief cryptic notations. "What is it?" I whispered. Gabriel's face was a mask of grim understanding. "It's a ledger," he said, his voice low and deadly. "Not for the family business. This is separate. These are private transactions. Off the books." He flipped a few pages, his eyes darting across the entries. He was tracking something. Money is moving outside the normal channels. Payments to people who don't exist on our payroll. He looked at me, his eyes blazing with a cold fire. He wasn't just trying to leave Lena. He was building a case. He was gathering evidence against Silas. The truth was more breathtaking than any fantasy. Leo hadn't been a passive victim. He had been a spy in his own house, documenting the corruption at its heart. He had been fighting back. For himself. For me. For the future he wanted. "We have to go." "Now?" Gabriel said, snapping the notebook shut and tucking it inside his jacket. He tossed another wad of cash at a bewildered Finn. "You never saw us." We moved quickly back through the maze of forgotten lives, the notebook feeling like a live bomb against Gabriel's chest. We were almost to the door, to the sliver of daylight, when Kale, who was in the lead, stopped dead. He held up a closed fist, a universal signal for a halt. He pointed toward the narrow, grimy window set high in the warehouse wall. Outside, a dark van had pulled up, blocking the mouth of the alley. Its doors were sliding open. Silas hadn't waited for us to come to him. He had found us. The air in the warehouse, already thick with decay, turned to ice. Time seemed to slow, each heartbeat a thunderous boom in the sudden silence. Kale didn't speak. He drew his weapon, the sound of the slide racking unnaturally loud. Gabriel's hand was on my back, shoving me down behind a tall stack of moldering mattresses. "Stay down. Do not move," he commanded, his voice a low, sharp whisper. He drew his own gun, his eyes locked on the warehouse entrance. The professional calm was back, but it was a different kind of calm now, the focused stillness of a man who knows violence is inevitable. From outside, I heard the crunch of footsteps on gravel, more than one set. They weren't trying to be quiet. This wasn't a stealthy reconnaissance. It was an assault. Finn, the warehouse owner, whimpered, backing away into the shadows. I don't want any trouble. Too late, Cale muttered, peering around the edge of a large armoire. The metal door we'd entered through suddenly shuddered as something heavy slammed against it from the outside, once, twice. On the third impact, the lock gave way with a shriek of tearing metal, and the door flew open, framing 3 men in the daylight. They were dressed in dark, casual clothes, not suits, their faces complex and impersonal. They carried pistols fitted with suppressors, professionals. They fanned out immediately, their movements coordinated, efficient. They knew we were here. They knew what we had come for. There! One of them barked, spotting our hiding place. The first shot was a soft phut, followed by the sound of splintering wood as a bullet buried itself in the armoire Cale was using for cover. Cale returned fire without hesitation. The report of his unsuppressed weapon was deafening in the enclosed space. A sharp, shocking crack that made me flinch and cover my ears. One of the attackers grunted and stumbled back, clutching his shoulder. Gabriel fired twice, precise, controlled shots that forced the other 2 men to take cover behind a pile of chairs. The firefight had begun. It was a brutal, close-quarters exchange of soft phuts and echoing cracks, the air filling with the smell of cordite and the sharp tang of fear. I crouched lower, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. This was real. This was happening. Bullets were cutting through the air where I had just been standing. I was going to die in this filthy warehouse surrounded by the wreckage of my old life. The thought was strangely clear, devoid of hysteria. It was a simple, cold fact. Gabriel was a blur of motion beside me. He wasn't just hiding. He was fighting with a terrifying, economical grace. He'd fire, move to a new position, fire again. He and Kyle were a team, covering each other. Their communication reduced to glances and hand signals. They were outnumbered, but they were better, far better. An attacker tried to flank us, moving low behind a row of filing cabinets. Gabriel saw him. He didn't shout a warning. He pivoted, aimed, and fired. The man cried out, collapsing behind the cabinets. The remaining 2 intensified their fire, bullets chewing through the mattresses I was hiding behind, sending puffs of dust and stuffing into the air. "We're pinned!" Kyle yelled over the gunfire. "We need an exit!" Gabriel's eyes scanned the warehouse, calculating. He looked at me, then at the far wall, where a smaller, rusted service door was half hidden behind a tower of boxes. "The back. Lena, when I say you run. Don't stop. Don't look back. Cale, cover us!" Cale nodded, ejecting a spent magazine and slamming a fresh one home with practiced ease. He laid down a suppressing fire, the roar of his gun momentarily drowning out everything else. "Now!" Gabriel grabbed my arm, yanking me to my feet. I ran. I didn't think. I just ran, my legs pumping, fueled by pure, undiluted adrenaline. I ducked low, expecting a bullet in the back at any second. Gabriel was right behind me, his body a shield, firing over his shoulder as we moved. We reached the service door. It was locked, chained from the inside. Gabriel didn't hesitate. He raised his gun and fired twice at the heavy padlock. Sparks flew and the lock shattered. He kicked the door open, revealing a narrow, garbage-strewn alley behind the warehouse. "Go, to the right," he shouted. I burst out into the alley, gulping the relatively fresh air. The sunlight was blinding. I could hear the squeal of tires from the street out front. More of them were coming. We sprinted down the alley. It was a dead end. A high brick wall topped with broken glass blocked our path. My heart plummeted. We were trapped. Gabriel didn't break stride. He shoved me toward a large, overflowing dumpster. "Behind it, now!" I scrambled into the narrow, foul-smelling space between the dumpster and the wall, squeezing myself into the shadows. Gabriel pressed in beside me, his chest heaving. He still had his gun raised, his eyes fixed on the mouth of the alley. We were cornered. Rats. The sound of running footsteps echoed from the warehouse door we'd just exited. They were coming. Gabriel looked at me, his face inches from mine. In his eyes, I saw no fear, only a furious, relentless determination. And something else, a flicker of apology. He thought this was it. He thought he had led me to my death. The footsteps were closer. 2 men, maybe 3, moving cautiously but quickly. They knew we had nowhere to go. I closed my eyes, waiting for the end. I thought of Leo. I hoped wherever he was, he couldn't see this. Then a new sound. The roar of an engine, impossibly loud in the confined alley. A black SUV, identical to the ones in Gabriel's garage, screeched around the corner at the far end. The one we'd thought was our entrance. It wasn't one of Silas's, it was ours. The vehicle didn't stop. It accelerated directly toward the men emerging from the warehouse door. They scattered, diving out of the way, firing wildly at the speeding truck. The SUV's window rolled down, and the muzzle of a rifle appeared, spitting fire. One of Silas's men went down and didn't get up. The SUV skidded to a halt, its passenger door swinging open just feet from our dumpster. The driver was another of Gabriel's stone-faced guards. "Get in!" Gabriel yelled, shoving me forward. I tumbled into the back seat, Gabriel piling in after me. Cale emerged from the warehouse door, firing a final few rounds to cover our retreat before sprinting and diving into the front passenger seat. The driver didn't wait for the door to close. He slammed the accelerator and the SUV shot forward, hurtling down the alley and back out into the busy street, weaving violently through traffic. I lay on the floor of the SUV, gasping for breath, my entire body shaking uncontrollably. The smell of garbage from the alley was still in my nose, mixed with the acrid scent of gun smoke and my own sweat. I could hear the men in the car with me breathing heavily. We were alive by a thread. Slowly, I pushed myself up onto the seat. Gabriel was beside me, his jacket torn, a thin trickle of blood running from a cut on his temple, probably from flying debris. He was checking his weapon, his movements methodical, but his hands were steady. He looked at me, his gaze sweeping over me, checking for injuries. "Are you hit?" he asked, his voice rough. I shook my head, unable to speak. I was trembling too hard. He gave a short, sharp nod, then reached inside his jacket. He pulled out the black notebook. It was slightly bent, but intact. The evidence, the reason for the bloodshed. He held it in his hands, his knuckles white. It had cost lives today. It had almost cost us ours. He looked from the notebook to me, and the cold fire was back in his eyes, brighter and more dangerous than ever. "He's declared his war," Gabriel said, his voice low and venomous. "And now with this," he tapped the notebook, "we have just declared ours." The SUV sped through the city, leaving the alley of death behind. But the war was beginning, and I was now a soldier in it. The adrenaline crash was a physical blow. One moment, my body was a live wire, every nerve ending screaming. Next, a leaden exhaustion settled into my bones, so profound my limbs felt too heavy to lift. The shaking wouldn't stop. It was a fine, constant tremor that felt like it was coming from my very core. I sat slumped in the leather seat of the SUV, staring blankly at the city blurring past the tinted windows. The images from the warehouse played on a relentless loop behind my eyes. The flash of muzzles, the splintering wood, the man collapsing behind the filing cabinets, the soft, wet sound of the bullet impact. I could still smell the gunpowder, a ghostly residue clinging to the inside of my nose. Nobody spoke. The only sounds were the hum of the engine, the whisper of the tires on asphalt, and the ragged rhythm of our breathing. Cale was on the phone, his voice a low, terse monotone, coordinating the cleanup, the aftermath. 2 hostiles neutralized, 1 wounded. Our egress is clean. The package is secure. The package. The notebook. My life, reduced to operational terminology. Gabriel was silent beside me, his head leaning back against the rest, eyes closed. But I knew he wasn't sleeping. The tension in his jaw, the tight clench of his fist on his thigh, betrayed a mind racing at 1,000 miles an hour. The cut on his temple had stopped bleeding, leaving a dark, ugly smear against his pale skin. He looked carved from marble and violence. We didn't go back to the glass tower. The SUV navigated a series of seemingly random turns, heading away from the skyscrapers and into an older, more residential neighborhood of stately brownstones and tree-lined streets. It pulled into a narrow, private garage tucked between 2 buildings. The door rolled down behind us, plunging us into near darkness before dim utility lights flickered on. This was a safe house. It was immediately apparent. The garage was sparse, containing only our vehicle and a nondescript sedan. A reinforced metal door led into the building itself. Cale went first, his weapon drawn, clearing the space before gesturing us inside. The interior was the absolute opposite of the penthouse. It was small, cramped even. The furniture was old, sturdy, and functional. Beige walls, a worn oriental rug, heavy curtains drawn shut over the windows. It smelled of lemon polish and stale air. It wasn't a home. It was a bunker with a couch. "Secure the perimeter. I need a full damage report," Gabriel said to Cale, his voice hoarse. Cale nodded and disappeared into another room. Gabriel finally turned his full attention to me. I was still standing just inside the door, hugging myself, the oversized hoodie suddenly feeling like a shroud. "Sit down," he said, his tone not unkind. but edged with the residual sharpness of combat. He gestured to the couch. I obeyed, sinking into the stiff cushions. My legs were jelly. He walked to a small kitchenette, filled a glass with water, and brought it to me. I took it with both hands. The trembling was so bad the water sloshed precariously. I drank it in one go, the cool liquid doing little to soothe the raw feeling in my throat. He sat in an armchair opposite me, leaning forward, his elbows on his knees. He studied me for a long, silent moment. The first time is always the worst, he said quietly. I looked up at him, a hysterical laugh bubbling in my chest. The first time? You think there's going to be a second? If Silas has his way, there will be many more, he replied, his gaze unwavering. You need to understand what this is, Lena, what it means. They weren't there to capture us. They were there to kill us, to erase the notebook and anyone who had seen it. There is no going back to the diner. There is no neutral ground. You are a target now, permanently. The finality of his words should have shattered me. But a strange thing was happening. The paralyzing fear was beginning to recede, burned away by the sheer white-hot intensity of the experience. In its place, something more complicated was forming, a cold, apparent anger. They shot at us, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. They tried to kill me. Yes, because of that. I pointed to the black notebook, which he had placed on the low coffee table between us. It looked so innocuous, so ordinary. Yes, I took a deep, shuddering breath. So what's in it? What was so important that Leo had to die for it, and we almost did? Gabriel picked up the notebook. He handled it with an almost religious reverence. He opened it, his eyes scanning the pages he had barely glanced at in the chaos of the warehouse. It's a shadow ledger, he explained, his finger tracing a column of numbers. These are wire transfers, offshore accounts. The initials here, they aren't our people. They're shell companies. Fronts that Silas has been using to siphon millions from the organization, skimming from the top, redirecting funds, building his own private empire with our family's money. He flipped a page. These dates correspond with the disappearances of several loyal captains, men who questioned his authority. The payments beside their initials are massive, payments for their silence, or for their lives. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine. They were dark with a cold, murderous fury. This is the proof. This is the treason. Alessio wasn't just documenting it. Look here. He pointed to a series of notes in the margin, written in a hastier script. G must see this. Too dangerous to move. Must get to C, she will know what to do. My breath caught. C, Claire, me. He thought I would know what to do. The trust, the responsibility he had placed in me, from beyond the grave, was a weight that threatened to crush me. He was trying to get it to you, Gabriel said, his voice soft with a kind of awed horror. He knew he was being watched. He knew he couldn't bring it to me directly. He was using you as a dead drop, a safe he thought no one would ever look in. He closed the book, the sound final. He was protecting you by not telling you, and he was trusting you with the one thing that could destroy his killer. The pieces locked into place with an almost audible click. The locked drawer. His nervousness. The canceled trip. He wasn't just a victim. He was an operative on a doomed mission, and I was his unwitting, crucial asset. The guilt I had carried for 2 years didn't vanish, but it transformed. It was no longer the guilt of having driven him away. It was the guilt of having been too blind to see the battle. He was fighting right beside me. I stood up, the trembling finally subsiding, replaced by a solid, unyielding resolve. I walked to the window and pulled the edge of the curtain aside. Peering out at the quiet, typical street, a woman was pushing a stroller. A man was walking his dog. A world of simple, uncomplicated lives. I let the curtain fall back into place and turned to face Gabriel. The girl who had been kidnapped from the rain-slicked street was gone. The woman who had survived an ambush in a warehouse stood in her place. Okay, I said, my voice low and clear. Gabriel watched me, a question in his eyes. Okay, I repeated. What's the next move? How do we use this? I gestured to the notebook. How do we make Silas pay? A slow, grim smile touched Gabriel's lips. It wasn't a pleasant expression. It was the smile of a general who has just found his most valuable weapon. The next move, he said, is that we stop reacting and we start acting. We have the evidence. Now we need the strategy. And you, Lena, are going to help me devise it. Because you're the only one who thinks as he did. You're the only one who can get inside his head and inside Silas's. He was right. This was no longer just his war. It was mine. Leo had left me the key. It was time to turn the lock. The quiet of the safe house was a stark, heavy blanket after the percussive violence of the warehouse. The adrenaline had bled away, leaving a hollowed-out clarity in its wake. I stood by the curtained window, the mundane street scene outside feeling like a diorama of a life I could never reclaim. The woman with the stroller, the man with the dog, they were ghosts from a past universe. My universe was here, in this cramped secret room, with a ledger of blood money and a man forged in violence. Gabriel's question hung in the air, a challenge and an invitation. How do we make Silas pay? It wasn't a rhetorical question. He was waiting for my answer. He believed I had a perspective he lacked, a connection to Leo's mind. I had to prove him right. I turned from the window and walked back to the coffee table, my movements deliberate, my mind clicking into a new, unfamiliar gear. It was an analytical space, cold and sharp, a place I hadn't known existed inside me. I looked down at the black notebook. He didn't just record this for you, I said, thinking aloud. If he wanted you to have it, he would have found a way, no matter the risk. Mailing it, leaving it with a lawyer. Something. I met Gabriel's intent gaze. He hid it. He left it for me to find. Because he knew that you, acting alone, would do exactly what you almost did today. You'd go in guns blazing. You'd confront Silas directly, and without absolute, undeniable proof. That would start the war you're trying to avoid, a war you might not win. Gabriel's eyes narrowed, but he didn't interrupt. He was listening. This, I tapped the notebook, isn't the weapon. It's the map to the weapon. Leo knew that. He knew that walking into a meeting and throwing a book of numbers at a man like Silas would accomplish nothing. He'd deny it. He'd say Leo was unstable, that he was forging records because he wanted out. He'd have his own accountants, his own loyalists, to cloud the issue. I picked up the notebook, feeling the weight of Leo's desperation in its pages. We need something that can't be denied. We need a witness, or we need to trap him into admitting it. A witness is a corpse waiting to happen, Gabriel said flatly, and Silas does not make mistakes. He does not confess. Then we make him, I insisted, the idea forming as I spoke. We use what's in here not as an accusation, but as bait. I opened the notebook, my eyes scanning the cryptic entries. These payments, these shell companies, they represent a network, a web of corruption that Silas has spent years building. His pride and joy, his private empire. What if we threaten that? Gabriel leaned forward, his interest fully captured. Go on. We can't attack him directly. So we attack his money. We find one of these offshore accounts, one of these fronts. We hit it. We make it look like a rival family, or an internal power grab from someone else in your organization. We make it messy. We make it costly. I could see the strategy unfolding in my mind. A dark, brutal chess game. We force him to move, to protect his assets, to expose his hand. When he goes to cover his tracks, to redirect the money, to contact his secret partners, that's when we're watching. That's when we get our proof. Not a handwritten ledger, but a digital trail, a recorded conversation, him giving an order to move his stolen millions. There was a long silence. Cale had re-entered the room and was standing by the door, listening impassively. It's a risk, Gabriel said finally. If we hit the wrong target, or if he suspects it's a trap, he'll go to ground. We'll lose our chance. We have the ledger, I countered, my confidence growing. We won't hit the wrong target. We'll pick the one that hurts the most, the one he can't afford to lose. We make the bait too sweet to ignore. I looked at Gabriel, seeing the calculations going on behind his eyes. He thinks you're a blunt instrument, Gabriel. He thinks you only understand force. So use that against him. Let him think you're lashing out randomly, desperately, because of the attack today. Let him think you're weak and distracted. Meanwhile, we're setting a snare. A slow, grim smile spread across Gabriel's face. It was a terrifying sight, full of a dark, approving respect. You have your brother's mind for strategy, he said to me, and it was the highest compliment he could have given. He was always the planner, the thinker. I was the first. He stood up with a new energy in his movements. Cale, we have work to do. For the next several hours, the safe house was transformed. The quiet bunker became a war room. Laptops were opened and secure lines were established. Gabriel's men, a select few he explicitly trusted, were brought into the fold. The black notebook was our Rosetta Stone. We cross-referenced the initials and numbers against known business fronts, shipping manifests and corporate registries. I was the interpreter, using my memory of Leo's habits and turns of phrase to decipher his cryptic notes. G must see this. Too dangerous to move. The G was a company called Grayson Imports. It was one of the shell companies in the ledger, a front for moving stolen electronics. It was perfect. The plan was set. We would hit Grayson Imports. Not a full-scale assault, but a precise, deniable strike. A fire. Something that would look like an accident or a rival's warning, but would destroy a crucial shipment and cost Silas a fortune. The financial loss would be significant, but the symbolic blow, the attack on an enterprise he thought was his secret, would be a direct challenge. He would have to act. As the final preparations were being made, Gabriel pulled me aside, away from the hushed intensity of the others. "You don't have to be here for this part," he said, his voice low. "You've done more than enough. I can have Kale take you to another location, somewhere even more secure. You can wait it out." I looked around the room at the focused, dangerous men, at the maps and the computers, at the black notebook that had started it all. This was no longer Gabriel's fight, or even Leo's. The anger that had been a cold ember in my chest was now a steady flame. Silas had taken the man I loved. He had turned my life into a shadow. He had sent men to kill me in a filthy warehouse. Waiting it out was not an option. "No," I said, my voice firm. "I'm not hiding. I started this. I'm seeing it through." Gabriel searched my face, looking for doubt, for fear. He found only resolution. He gave a single sharp nod. "Then you stay with me. You're my strategist. I need your eyes." He handed me a small, sleek communication device. "This is linked to my private channel. You'll hear everything. If anything goes wrong, if I tell you to run, you run." "Understood." "Understood." I took the device, its cool plastic feeling like a lifeline and a weapon. The operation launched an hour later. From the safe house, we monitored the feed. Gabriel was in the field, a voice in my ear, calm and authoritative. I heard the distant sound of shattering glass, the roar of flames, the terse, coded confirmations from his team. It was done. Grayson Imports was burning. Now we waited. The trap was set. The bait was taken. All that was left was for the predator to step into the snare. I sat in the silent, tense safe house, the comm device pressed to my ear, listening to Gabriel's breathing, waiting for the monster to reveal himself. The wait was its own kind of violence, a slow, tightening coil of anticipation. I was no longer a victim, a witness, or a pawn. I was the hunter. The silence in the safe house, after the operation, was the most profound I had ever experienced. It was a pressurized void, filled with the ghost of crackling flames and the echo of terse, successful commands. The strike on Grayson Imports was a clean, brutal success. From the live audio feed in my ear, I had heard it all. The efficient chaos, the confirmation of the target's destruction, the swift, ghost-like withdrawal of Gabriel's team. Now there was nothing but the hum of the laptops and the weight of the weight. The trap was sprung. Now we had to see what it caught. Gabriel's voice had been a constant, steady presence in my ear during the operation, a low rumble of command and control. Now, from his position in a surveillance van somewhere in the city, his silence was even more telling. He was waiting, just like I was. The small communication device felt hot in my hand, a conduit to the nerve center of our vengeance. Kale was stationed by one of the laptops, his eyes fixed on a screen displaying a complex web of financial transactions. The ledger had given us the keys to Silas's kingdom, and we were watching the gates. The goal was to see a ripple, a sudden, panicked movement of money from one of the accounts. Leo had documented, a digital confession. An hour passed, then two. The tension was a physical thing coiling in the room, making the air difficult to breathe. I paced, my nerves stretched taut. What if he didn't take the bait? What if he were smarter than we were, more patient? What if this entire violent gamble was for nothing? Then Kyle stiffened. "Movement," he said, his voice cutting through the stillness like a blade. I rushed to his side, looking over his shoulder at the screen. A complex string of numbers and codes was scrolling. Where? The Aurora Holdings account. It's one of the major ones from the ledger. A series of large, rapid transfers is being initiated. They're routing through 3 different shell companies we've identified. Kyle's fingers flew across the keyboard, tracing the digital path. He's moving it. He's scared. He's pulling his money out of the fire. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. The proof. He was reacting exactly as we had predicted. But we needed more. We needed a voice. "Can we intercept the communication?" I asked, my voice tight. The order to move it? We're trying, Kel said, his focus absolute. The encryption is high level, military grade. It will take time we may not have. In my ear, Gabriel's voice came back to life, having heard everything through the open comms. He'll be calling his banker, his fixer. He doesn't trust this to text or email. He'll want to hear a voice. We need that call. We waited again, every second in agony. The financial movements on the screen were a frantic, silent scream, but we needed the sound to go with it. 5 minutes, 10. Another alert flashed on Kale's screen. This one from a different program altogether. An audio surveillance monitor. We have a signal, he said, his voice sharp with triumph. A call placed from a secure line registered to a dummy corporation. The recipient is a private bank in Luxembourg, a bank linked to 3 other accounts in the ledger. He clicked a button, and the room was filled with the sound of a phone ringing. Then a click as it was answered. "This is a secure line," a precise, accented voice said. And then, the voice we had been waiting for. Silas. It was him. The benevolent grandfather from the photograph. But the warmth was gone, replaced by a cold, clipped urgency that was far more terrifying. "The Grayson asset has been compromised," Silas said without preamble. "Initiate the Aurora contingency immediately. Liquidate and transfer all holdings to the Peregrine Trust. I want it done within the hour. The volumes are significant, Mr. Abundando. This will trigger alerts." "I don't care about alerts," Silas snapped, the polished facade cracking to reveal the ruthless predator beneath. This was Marcello. A warning. He's getting too close. He has that girl, and God knows what else she's told him. "Move the money. Now, that is not a request." The call ended. The silence that followed was deafening. We had it. We had him. On a recorded line. Giving a direct order to move millions of dollars of embezzled funds. Admitting that Gabriel was too close, and implicating me as a key reason for his panic. It was a perfect, self-incriminating confession. In my ear, I heard Gabriel let out a long, slow breath. It was the sound of 2 years of hunting finally culminating in a single, undeniable moment of truth. "We have him," he whispered. The words laden with a profound, vicious satisfaction. Back at the safe house, Cale was already archiving the audio file, backing it up to multiple encrypted locations. The financial data was being compiled into a damning report. We had built the case. The evidence was irrefutable. The comm device crackled. "Lena!" It was Gabriel. "It's time. Meet me at the penthouse. We end this tonight." The order sent a final electric jolt through my system. The planning was over. The waiting was over. Now came the reckoning. Cale drove me back to the glass tower, the journey a blur. The night had fallen completely, and the city lights were once again a blanket of stars below us. The penthouse was just as I remembered it. Cold, vast, and silent. But it felt different now. It was no longer a cage or a fortress. It was a throne room, and we were about to pass judgment. Gabriel was already there, standing before the wall of glass. He had changed into an impeccably tailored dark suit. He looked like what he was, a king. He turned as I entered, and in his eyes, I saw the gathered storm of the last 2 years, ready to be unleashed. "He's called a meeting of the family council," Gabriel said, his voice calm and deadly. "For 10 o'clock. He's going to use the attack on Grayson to accuse me of reckless leadership, of destabilizing our business. He's going to make a move to have me removed. And we're going to walk in and play that recording," I finished for him. A grim smile touched his lips. "We are, but you don't have to come. What happens in that room? It won't be pleasant. You can wait here. You've already won this for us." I thought of the warehouse, the bullets, the ledger, the sound of Silas's voice confirming every terrible truth. I had come too far to wait in another room. I had earned my place at this table. "I'm coming," I said, my voice steady. "I have a right to be there." "For Leo." Gabriel looked at me for a long moment, and then he nodded. He walked to a locked cabinet and opened it. Inside, nestled on black velvet, was a beautiful, deadly-looking pistol with a polished wood grip. He didn't offer it to me. Instead, he picked up a smaller, sleek, black handgun. He checked the magazine, racked the slide, and engaged the safety before holding it out to me. "Do you know how to use it?" he asked. The Southside girl answered, "Point and pull the trigger." A flicker of respect in his eyes. "The safety is off. It's ready. Please keep it in your pocket. Don't use it unless you have no other choice." He paused. "But if you have to, don't hesitate." I took the gun. It was heavier than I expected, cold and solid in my hand. It was not a comfort. It was a tool, a final, brutal argument. I tucked it into the pocket of the dark trousers I wore, the weight a sobering anchor. It was time to go to the meeting. It was time to face the man who killed Leo. The hunter was going to look her prey in the eye. The drive to the meeting was a silent, funereal procession. There were no sirens, no frantic urgency, just the smooth, inexorable glide of the black SUV through the night. Gabriel sat beside me, a statue of contained fury, his profile etched against the passing lights. He held a slim tablet containing the audio file, the digital sword we would use to behead a king. The gun was a cold, heavy secret in my pocket, a last resort that felt both terrifying and necessary. We arrived at a nondescript, old-world social club in a quiet, respectable neighborhood. It looked like a place for retired gentlemen to play cards and sip brandy. But the two large men at the door, their suits straining over holstered weapons, betrayed its true purpose. This was a seat of power. One of them nodded curtly to Gabriel and opened the heavy oak door. The air inside was thick with the smell of old cigar smoke, polished wood, and a tense, waiting silence. We stood in a lavish foyer, all dark wood and deep red wallpaper. A set of double doors, slightly ajar, led to the main room. Muffled voices could be heard from within. Gabriel paused, his hand on my arm. "Stay behind me. Let me speak. No matter what you see or hear, you do not react unless I tell you to." "Understood." I nodded, my throat too dry to speak. The reality of where I was, what we were about to do, was a crushing weight. These were not just business people. They were the most dangerous men in the city, and we were about to accuse their most senior member of treason. Gabriel pushed the doors open and we entered. The room was a council chamber. A long mahogany table dominated the space, surrounded by a dozen high-backed leather chairs. Most of them were occupied by men of various ages, all with the same hard, assessing eyes, the same air of unshakable authority. They were the captains, the bosses, the made men of the Marcello family, and at the head of the table, sitting to the right of the empty chair that was clearly Gabriel's, was Silas. He looked exactly like his photograph, the silver hair, the kind eyes, the gentle smile. He was holding a glass of amber liquid, swirling it gently as he listened to another man speak. He looked like a wise, benevolent elder statesman, the perfect disguise. All conversation ceased as we entered. Every eye in the room turned to us. The silence was absolute, heavy with surprise and suspicion. Their gazes swept over me with open curiosity and veiled hostility. A woman, an outsider, in their sanctum. Silas's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. They were cold, calculating chips of ice. "Gabriel, we were beginning to worry. And you've brought a guest? How unconventional." "This concerns her," Gabriel said, his voice calm and resonant, carrying to every corner of the room. He walked to the head of the table but did not sit. I stood slightly behind, and to his right, my hands clenched at my sides, the weight of the gun a steadying presence. "Does it?" Silas asked, his tone lightly mocking. "Because the matter at hand concerns your reckless attack on a legitimate business interest tonight. Grayson Imports. You've cost this family a great deal of money, Gabriel. And for what? A petty display of force?" "It was a message," Gabriel said, his gaze locking with Silas's. "A message to the traitor in this room who has been stealing from us, who has been murdering his own, who ordered the death of my brother." A ripple of shock went through the room. Murmurs broke out. Silas's smile never wavered, but a faint tightening around his eyes betrayed him. "These are grave accusations." "Gabriel," one of the older men said, his voice gravelly with age and authority, "do you have any proof of this fantasy? Or is this the grief of a brother lashing out at shadows?" "I have proof," Gabriel said, placing the tablet on the table. "I have a ledger in Alessio's own hand, documenting years of embezzlement, of payments for murder, all leading back to one man." He didn't point. He didn't need to. Every eye in the room slid to Silas. Silas chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. "A ledger? Written by a boy who wanted to abandon his family and his responsibilities? A clearly unstable boy? You would take the word of a deserter over mine?" "It's not just the ledger," Gabriel said, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. He tapped the tablet screen. "It's the panic that followed when we burned his stolen money. It's the voice on this recording, giving the order to move millions of dollars of family money into his private account, and admitting that he had Alessio killed because he was getting too close." Silas's face went pale. The glass in his hand stilled. For the first time, The benevolent mask slipped completely, revealing the vicious, cornered animal beneath. "This is an outrage. A forgery. You cannot—" Gabriel pressed play. The room was filled with Silas's voice, cold and urgent. "The Grayson asset has been compromised. Initiate the Aurora contingency." This was Marcello. A warning. He's getting too close. He has that girl, and God knows what else she's told him. The effect was instantaneous and electric. The men around the table, hardened killers all, stared at Silas with a mixture of horror and dawning fury. In their world, loyalty was everything. Theft was a sin. Murdering the boss's heir was a death sentence. Silas had committed all three. Silas shot to his feet, his chair scraping backwards. The kindly grandfather was gone, replaced by a snarling, desperate man. "It's a trick. He's trying to consolidate power. He's eliminating anyone who challenges him." But it was too late. The evidence was undeniable. The room had turned. I saw it in their eyes, in the way their hands drifted toward their own weapons. Judgment had been passed. Gabriel looked around the table, meeting the gaze of each man. "The punishment for treason is death." He said it not as a threat, but as a simple, unassailable statement of law. Silas knew it was over. His eyes, wild with fear and hatred, darted around the room, looking for an ally and finding none. Then his gaze landed on me. The source of his ruin, the girl who had survived, who had remembered, who had helped unearth his crimes. With a roar of pure, undiluted rage, he pulled a small, elegant pistol from a shoulder holster beneath his suit jacket. But he didn't point it at Gabriel. He pointed it directly at me. "You!" he screamed. Time seemed to distort, to slow to a thick, syrupy crawl. I saw the madness in his eyes. The black hole of the pistol's barrel aimed at my face. I saw Gabriel start to move, but he was too far away. I saw the other men at the table reaching for their guns, but it was all too slow. The South Side instinct, the one I had tried to bury under diner coffee and in everyday life, took over. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. My hand was already in my pocket. My fingers were already wrapped around the grip of the gun Gabriel had given me. I pulled it out. I didn't aim. I just pointed at the center of his mass as the old instinct screamed at me to do, and I pulled the trigger. The sound was deafening in the enclosed room. A single, sharp, final crack. The bullet hit Silas in the center of his chest. The impact knocked him back a step. The kind, grandfatherly expression was frozen on his face in a rictus of shock. His own gun clattered to the floor unfired. He looked down at the blossoming red stain on his pristine white shirt, then back up at me, his eyes wide with an impossible surprise. Then his legs gave way and he collapsed to the floor. The room was utterly, profoundly silent. The echo of the gunshot faded, leaving a ringing in my ears. Smoke curled from the barrel of the gun in my hand. My arm was extended steady. My breath was caught in my chest. I had just killed a man. I looked from Silas's body on the floor to the faces of the men around the table. They were all staring at me, their expressions a mixture of shock, respect, and a newfound wary fear. Gabriel was looking at me too. He hadn't drawn his own weapon. He was watching me, his gray eyes wide, his face unreadable. I slowly lowered the gun, my hand now trembling violently. The weight of what I had done, the finality of it, crashed down on me. I had come for vengeance, for truth. I had gotten it, and it tasted of blood and gunpowder. It was over.